Hello everyone, this is Dave. Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to take a look at some of the latest Rocket Lab news and updates. First of all, I do just need to thank my two newest channel members, Patrick Kelly and Lickspix. Thank you guys so much for supporting what I do here. Before we dive into that, I hope you will consider hitting that subscribe button if you haven't already, and if you are already a subscriber, well, those likes and comments always help out with the algorithms as well, so those are very much appreciated. Okay, with that out of the way, let's dive into the latest Rocket Lab updates. Starting off with the stock, it was down about 3.3% today, and over the past week we're looking at a relatively flat week, although a little bit down. I do consider that to be quite healthy when you consider the bigger picture with the stock, zooming out 3 months, 6 months, even a year. We are looking at absolutely massive growth. So if you're out there looking at this drop and thinking, then maybe you haven't been investing for a very long time, or you should be in a little bit more stable stocks. I haven't dove too deep into the TA, but I do kind of hope and think that maybe we have a new support developing here around $22, maybe $22.50. It does seem like things are leveling off. Still short term though. I do think the stock needs time to digest this massive move, all these gains, maybe catch up, have the company catch up to the valuation a little bit, and nothing goes straight up forever, so absolutely nothing wrong with this run we've seen here over the past couple weeks. Okay, next up, we do have a couple Electron launches coming up soon. First of all, there's another one for Cinespective. Rocket Lab has actually been the sole launch provider for Cinespective since their first launch back in 2020. And the next mission will be on December 18th, which is the 6th of a total of 16 launches out of New Zealand. Looking forward to that launch. Maybe we'll live stream it if it does turn out to be at a good time for us over on the other side of the world. That's not all though, because as Space Equity's Twitter handle tells us, there looks like there's another Rocket Lab HASTE launch coming very soon as well from Wallops, Virginia. According to the Air Traffic Management website, Rocket Lab is scheduled to launch a mission called Stonehenge in a window from December 14th through the 20th, which would mean we would have another 2 launches very close to each other for Rocket Lab, a very good sign for the quarter. And it would actually make this a record quarter if it does happen. Now, going back to the good old Naylor chart that I like to reference, obviously this one's a little bit out of date, but we have 4 launches for Q1, 4 launches for Q2, 3 launches for Q3, which would obviously bring us to 11. Then we have 3 launches in Q4 plus another 2, which would be 5. Bringing the total launch count for 2024 up to 16, and obviously 5 launches in a quarter would be a record, so that will be exciting if it does happen. There's some speculation that maybe another Black Sky launch gets squeezed into Q4 by the end of the year, but not something that we should count on. So if these 2 launches go well, we may be looking at 16 for the year, maybe 17 if that Black Sky launch gets squeezed in, but still pretty solid growth over last year, although it's not the 20 plus launches that we were all hoping for and expecting at the start of the year. Ultimately, what are you going to do about those customer delays? They'll get ready when they're ready, and the money remains in Rocket Lab's bank account, even though it's not officially recognized under the accounting. Okay, next up, we did have an 8K form filed recently by Rocket Lab related to Peter Beck's compensation package. I think it's no secret that I am a big fan of him as a CEO, so in my mind, whatever they need to do to keep him on board running the company is absolutely essential to the future of the company and their continued growth. Taking a look at this 8K, first of all, they entered into an agreement with Peter's Family Trust to exchange his existing shares for preferred shares, actually. And what these preferred shares do is basically grant Peter the right to elect either one board member or however many board seats would be required to maintain at any time at least 10% of total board representation. So giving him a bit more control of the board and making sure he maintains control of the company. To me, I have absolutely no problem with that. The underlying shares are still worth the same amount of money, but they give him this extra control of the board. And I think, as I said, he's guided the company thus far very successfully, and I have absolutely no problem with him getting greater control. They do say in the filing here that this transaction may also enable Peter a greater ability to undertake efficient long-term estate and tax planning while maintaining his existing ownership stake in the company without material cost to the company or equity dilution to its shareholders. Also, in terms of Peter's compensation, the company entered into an amended and restated employee agreement with Sir Peter to provide him with a compensation package that the company believes is competitive in the market for similar positions on a peer-based group. So Peter will be getting $800,000 as a base annual salary and is eligible to receive a performance bonus of up to 100% of that, so another 800,000, making the total potential base salary being 1.6 million. For the fiscal year of 2024, he's also being granted an award of 631,000 restricted stock units, which do vest over time. And in addition, for fiscal 24, he will receive an additional award of 157,000 RSUs. For fiscal 2025, RSU award with a value equal to $8 million on the date of the grant. So the stock portion of his compensation is, much higher than just the base salary. Overall, obviously, you don't love any dilution as a shareholder, but I do think the value Peter brings to the company is tremendous. And believe me, from what I've heard, nobody works harder than him. All hours of the night, getting up super early, having dinner, and then going back to work after dinner. I really basically want Peter at the helm of Rocket Lab as long as I am invested in the company. You look at other CEO compensation packages out there. This one I don't think is super crazy. Yes, you have CEOs like ASTs out there who are not taking any salary whatsoever. But overall, personally, I have no problems with this. Let me know what you guys think when it comes to the compensation, if you think it's excessive or fair. And further to that, would you even invest in Rocket Lab if there was a new CEO and Peter stepped down? I'd be interested to hear your thoughts on that as well. Okay, continuing on, there were a couple articles recently about Peter Beck and Rocket Lab. I considered them to be mostly fluff pieces, although they talk a little bit about his style and philosophies. So if you're interested in that sort of thing, you can check them out. This one, just highlighting a quote. In terms of Rocket Lab's successes, he suggested that one of the main drivers is that it has a relentless focus on engineering, and he also thinks that it makes a difference having a boss who is an engineer because important decisions are made from an engineering mindset rather than a financial one. And I would say I absolutely agree with that as you look at the success of a Rocket Lab and a SpaceX versus what's happened with Boeing Space Division and their former CEO being more of an accountant. I think there's a lot of examples showing that you do want technically knowledgeable leaders, especially for smaller growing companies, that's for sure. Another one here, Peter again just saying with a quote that he describes himself as a chronic workaholic, micromanager, and paranoid about everything, especially failure, and he credits those traits for his success. Some people may not love the micromanager bit if they work for him, but yeah, from what I've heard, as I said, he just works a ton and is very dedicated to this company. One more, I would say that this is a pretty bullish quote, although he has said similar things In other interviews, he said that if you look at Rocket Lab, we are less than 4% of the valuation of SpaceX, but as we continue to execute, the difference between those two companies will continue to close. So a pretty bullish statement from Peter on that one, as obviously SpaceX with now looks like they're getting a $350 billion valuation, and Rocket Lab now looking at maybe, 11, I think, right now. So a big gap to close there, and obviously that would result in great returns for the company over time. Now, Rocket Lab's director Sandy Turtley also recently spoke in a webinar series. If you want to check it out, this is on YouTube. He did say that Rocket Lab appreciates Varda's switch to landing in Australia versus the US because it provides more margin to the spacecraft bus than the US range, and he also mentioned that they are looking into more Launchpad locations for Neutron, which could be quite interesting. So we'll have to wait and see where else Neutron could launch for in the coming years. Let me know your theories, of course, down below. A lot of people think maybe Australia. New Zealand, as we know, doesn't really have the infrastructure to support the kind of fuels that they do need. Maybe somewhere in Europe, like Firefly announced in Sweden. I guess there's a lot of options out there. Always interested to hear your theories. Or even Vandenberg or California, one of those other places in the United States. He specifically mentioned locations that allow retrograde and lower inclination in equatorial orbits. I have no idea which launch complexes or locations in the world accommodate those items because I am not an expert on orbits and launch, but let me know if you have any theories down below as well. Now, friend of the channel, Space Investors Daily on Twitter/X, as well as friend of the channel, Scotto, recently actually had the opportunity to have an interview with Varda's co-CEO on X, and it was a pretty interesting discussion. If you want to check it out, you can check out either Scott or Space Investor Daily on X. They are both a good follow. I'm just going to play for you a quick clip here of Varda's co-founder talking about their relationship and future with Rocket Lab.
Do you guys plan to continue your relationship with Rocket Lab using their buses and components, or is this something that we could maybe see developed in-house for future missions?
What I'd say is, publicly, we have only confirmed that W2 and W3 will be launched with the Rocket Lab bus. I think, sort of beyond that, we're, sort of not yet, sort of commenting on what our architecture will be, but obviously after the close of the W3 mission, we'll obviously sort of be talking about what sort of future architectures may look like. And I think with us, it's always going to be sort of a sort of case by case basis, and I think we'll always reassess our priors sort of each sort of year in terms of what's available sort of commercially, what makes sense to sort of have in house, what makes sense to sort of buy off the shelf. I think if you should compare the environment that we're in today relative to sort of call sort of SpaceX in the sort of late 2000s. Thankfully, I think there's much more robust sort of supply chain and commercial providers, and so thankfully I don't have to build my own rocket. Obviously, for our first 3 missions, we didn't have to sort of build our own bus, and we expect that over time there will maybe sort of more and more that we go full stack. But I don't think we'll ever need to necessarily go nearly as full stack as SpaceX has, given just how mature the supply chain is today in the broader commercial aerospace ecosystem.
Now, the interesting thing here is that he says they've only confirmed W2 and W3 as Rocket Lab satellite buses for now, but we can see in Rocket Lab's most recent earnings call that they say they have 4 of these spacecraft in production and development. So that's a little bit of a confusing discrepancy. Maybe he just wasn't aware of what's been publicly released and wasn't sure if he was allowed to reveal that it's not just 2 and 3 using a Rocket Lab spacecraft bus. But it also does kind of make you wonder about the future of their Pioneer spacecraft bus, because this one is only contracted to Varda right now, and if Varda does think about, looking at other options in the future, perhaps going more full stack and building out their own bus down the line, I don't really know if there's still too much demand for this Pioneer spacecraft bus. Obviously, Rocket Lab has 3 other models that have a lot of demand for them, especially the Lightning bus, but it does just make me curious as to the future of the Pioneer bus specifically, which only has Varda as a contracted customer right now. So let me know what you think. Is Varda going to pivot away from Rocket Lab's Pioneer bus? And if so, is this one just going to kind of be a canceled model as it shares so much heritage with their other satellite buses, or is there demand perhaps from elsewhere for this kind of a platform? Always interested to hear everyone's thoughts down below. Finally, Varda Space did recently speak at the Global Industrials and Transportation Conference in 2024 for UBS. It is almost a 40-minute long interview, so I'm not going to go through all of that here, but if you want to check it out, there's a link for it on their investor relations page, and anyone can log in and give it a listen. I'll probably check it out at a later date. I, to be honest, haven't had time to give the full thing a listen yet myself, and if there's any major takeaways, I might mention those in a future video. You can always let me know down in the comments if you listened to it and heard anything that was majorly interesting. So that's what's going on with Rocket Lab this week. We have a couple launches coming up. It's looking like it's going to be a record quarter. Some interesting drama going on with Varda, as well as a bit of a confusing messaging between the two sides. Thank you to Scott for asking that question in the interview with Varda's co-founder. Let me know, as always, what you think about any of these topics down below, or if there's anything I missed, please don't hesitate to share it in the comments. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really do appreciate it if you stuck around to the end, and if you are still here and you haven't subscribed already, please do consider doing that if you found this video interesting and informative. I hope you guys have a great day and a great rest of the week. I will see you soon for the next video. Bye for now.